gas shutoff valves and sewer laterals? What the heck is all of that stuff? Well, it falls under the broad term of point of sale ordinances, and that's what we're going to cover in today's video, and we're going to start right now. Hey guys, Hans Struzyna with the Gunderman Group at Keller Williams Luxury International coming to you with another video. Today we're talking about the point of sale ordinances. It's a bit of a piggyback on last week's video where I covered the contingencies that you need to be aware of when you're writing an offer, and I'll link to that right up here. But today we want to talk about the point of sale ordinances because it's critical to understand when you're writing an offer, negotiating, and understanding your cost of ownership once you actually close on your brand new house. If you get value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel because I am going to continue to put out weekly content just like this and you're not going to want to miss it. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So let's start by defining what a point of sale ordinance is. Basically, it's something that the city that you're buying in has deemed important and needs to happen, needs to pass, needs to be upgraded, retrofitted, something like that in order to be sold. And that's why it happens when someone goes to sell a house. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to happen at the time of the sale or even before because there are ways to defer them, and every single city is a little bit different and every ordinance is a little bit different. But generally speaking, the idea is it has to be addressed right at the time of sale by the seller or done ahead of time before they put it on the market, or potentially deferred to after the sale is closed and done by the buyer in a relatively short period of time thereafter. So the ordinance that most people are familiar with and understand, broadly speaking, is the sewer lateral. So basically there's a line between your house and the city's line that basically connects the two. And generally speaking, because so many of those when they were originally constructed were made out of clay and the ground has shifted, tree roots have grown through them, they've cracked over time because they're just old and leaking sewage down into the groundwater, into the soil. That is why the city has put those as a point of sale ordinance. They want them to be pressure tested and to hold water so there's not an active leak anywhere and pass when the house is sold. So I've got this diagram up so you can kind of visualize what I'm talking about here, but basically it's that line that needs to be replaced potentially. So when you're looking at a disclosure packet, you're going to see a bid, generally speaking, for the pressure test and for the replacement in the event that it fails, or if they've already assessed that it will definitely fail, and many of them will because they're not something that people typically replace just because, there's going to be a bid to replace that sewer lateral. Now, a lot of people think that you're going to have to trench up the entire yard and that sort of thing, and that used to be the case, but no longer actually, because they can do what's called a trenchless sewer lateral, which basically they open up both ends, run a line in there, inflate it out, break out the old one, and then connect the new one in its exact location. You always want to make sure that you read the quote on those and make sure you verify that it's given by a very reputable company because that can run multiple thousands of dollars. In fact, I'd say the average that I see is somewhere in the $5,000 to $7,000 range. The work doesn't take very long, but the price definitely sits in that world. So it's a big check that you're writing to get this done. And if it's deferred until after escrow is done, there was a negotiation, and generally it lands to the buyer, of putting $4,500 deposit into escrow that then the municipal district holds until you do the work on your lateral. They give you 6 months to do the work before they start taking parts of your deposit. And so basically the incentive is to get that work done, you pass, you get your new lateral, they give you your $4,500 back. So that's how they verify that it gets done. You get your money back, you get the lateral done, and everyone is happy at that point. But just be aware of this one and make sure you understand how much of a check you're signing up for and then who's doing the work, because not all of those companies are created equal. Next is the gas shutoff valve. Alameda specifically does have a ordinance around this. Not all the other cities in the East Bay do, but it is generally speaking a really good idea to get one of these. Basically, it's a small red box. I've got a picture here. So you can see on your gas meter that in the event of an earthquake that's big enough to sort of disrupt the gas lines, a little ball will fall down inside that thing and shut off the gas to your house. Basically, the idea is if a gas line breaks and there's an electrical fire, it won't ignite the gas and further blow up your house or light any neighboring houses on fire. Whether it's a point of sale ordinance or not, it's always a good idea to have. It's about $400, $500 to get it done with the permits in less than a day of work. So it's really just a nice safety feature here that you should do regardless of if it's an ordinance or not if you're buying it. Now, one that less people know about, mainly because it's a relatively new one, except for Piedmont, is the sidewalk ordinance. Just recently, Oakland adopted the sidewalk ordinance as a point of sale one. Basically, what it means is as part of closing the escrow, you have to verify that the sidewalk in front of your property doesn't have any divots, raises, cracks over 1/4 of an inch. And that sounds obviously really small. So most of the time when there's a tree or there's some uneven pavement, it's something that's going to have to be replaced. Now, most of the time those bids, assuming you have a relatively small sidewalk in front of your house, are not going to be astronomical. In fact, $1,000 to $2,000, generally speaking, is what I see on a lot of typical length sidewalks. However, if you have a corner lot and you have 2 sections of sidewalk, or you have a huge frontage up to the street that has a long sidewalk and a lot of trees that have totally uprooted the sidewalk, you now might be signing up for a pretty substantial amount of new concrete out in front of your house. Again, this is something that can be deferred until after the close of escrow, and you will generally in the disclosure packet see a bid for it, so you know hopefully what it is you're signing up for, but it's absolutely something, especially if you're in Oakland or Piedmont, that you need to be aware of because it's something that has to be done right then during the escrow or shortly thereafter. Now, aside from the 3 ordinances that I just talked about, every city has a little variation on other things that they want. For example, Berkeley wants an energy audit done, which basically doesn't have a big action item or a dollar tag associated with it, but it's something you have to do and put on file with the city once you transfer the property relative to the energy efficiency of the home. You also have the transfer of seismic retrofit credits from either a buyer to a seller or seller to a buyer, depending on who might be doing retrofit work. You can also see things like water conserving plumbing fixtures, who's responsible for making sure those are in compliance. That is a relatively nuanced one, and that's one you really want to dig in with your agent on because it is very specific to the house and to the situation, so make sure you dig in there. There's also things around pool safety, and those obviously only apply if you have a pool or a spa on the property, so definitely one, if you're looking at a house like that, to pay attention to as well. So that is the big, broad overview. Every city has their own nuanced ones, as I mentioned towards the end, but generally speaking, the sewer laterals one you're going to have to be aware of all the time, and then the sidewalk as well as the gas shutoff valve if you're looking in Oakland, Alameda, Piedmont, Berkeley. Those are ones you're going to want to pay attention to as well. Make sure you talk to your agent, review the disclosures, get bids for these because this is definitely something that sellers oftentimes expect buyers to take on, not always, but often. And so you're going to want to be very aware of what you're signing up for, how much money you're going to have to spend, and what the timelines are associated with these things. If you got some value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel because I am going to continue to put out weekly content just like this, and you're not going to want to miss it. So without any further ado, thanks for tuning in. This is Hans Struzyna with the Gunderman Group at Keller Williams Luxury International, signing off for now. See you on the next one.